nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit. I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut. Today we'll go bird watching, tomorrow we'll catch toads. The next day we'll take photographs of bugs along the road. I never get the feeling that I'm in a rut. That's why I'm a nature nut. Well, I'm a nature nut, I'm not afraid to admit. I'm wild about the wild things and I'm proud of it. I'm just a simple case, open and shut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut. Nature in the winter. Now there's a great topic for you. Are you ready for nature in the winter? I personally prefer nature in the summer when there are leaves and bugs and flowers and things like that, but there's still a few things we can do while the snow is still on the ground. I've got my ice fishing gloves instead, or mitts, I guess these are, not gloves, in case we have to do any ice drilling. And I've got good plans for us. We're going to look at the world of hibernation. We're going to look at where yellow-jacket wasps go during the winter. And the good thing for us nature nuts is that there's still lots to do in the winter while you're waiting for spring. That sure looks good. You know, when I was a kid, my buddy Chris and I, we figured if you filled a bunch of coffee cans full of hot water, put them out on the snow on your lawn, that the snow would all melt and summer would come back in the middle of winter. I've never actually tried it before. Doesn't look too terribly promising, unfortunately. Well, it just doesn't seem to be working, does it? Maybe we have to be more patient. While we're waiting, let me remind you that nature in the winter is not at all like nature in the summer. All of the cold-blooded, creepy-crawly things that we love so dearly are more or less hibernating. And the only animals that are active are the warm-blooded birds and the mammals, although a lot of those are hibernating, at least the mammals. A lot of the birds have migrated south, and you know, it's just not quite the exciting place that it is in the spring and the summer. Why is this? Why do we have winter in the first place? Let me explain. It's a bit of physics. Think of these coffee cans as the solar system. This big one in the middle, the sun. This one can be the Earth. Mars, Uranus, Pluto, Goofy, all those other planets. The Earth is traveling around the sun, and in the summertime it's at a nice, straight angle to the sun warms it up and everything's fine. In the wintertime it's sort of tilted over into the angle of the sun's rays is, whoa, Pacific Ocean spill there. Angle of the sun's rays is much more shallow, and so the warming effect isn't as pronounced, and that's why you have winter. Physics. Never did like physics, that's why I'm a biologist. I guess this coffee can thing is a bit of physics too. Yep, summer should be here any minute.
There are all sorts of different ways of getting through the winter for animals that don't remain active. Some mammals, well, they'll hibernate. They'll build up a bit of fat reserve in the fall and then go into a deep, deep sleep. It's actually more than a sleep because the body temperature drops and the heart rate slows down and the breathing slows down almost to nothing. But the great hibernators of all time are the insects. So they can spend the winter, depending on the species, either as eggs or as caterpillars, larvae, pupa, or adult insects. Can you imagine, though, what it would be like being something like a moth pupa, suspended in a silk cocoon, hanging out in a bush, spending the whole winter with antifreeze in your blood or compounds that prevented the ice crystals from getting so big that they would damage your cells, hoping, like anything, that you wouldn't be discovered by a bird and devoured before you had a chance to emerge into an adult moth. Oh man, that must be weird as anything.
In winter, many owls listen for rodents under the snow and then plunge their talons through the crust to catch their prey. You know, when a warm-blooded animal like a person gets too cold in the winter, body temperature starts to drop and then shivering sets in to warm the body back up. And if the shivering works, well, that's good, and if it doesn't, well, you're in big trouble. For a cold-blooded animal like a reptile or an amphibian,
it's very different. They don't shiver, they just get colder and colder, and as they get colder and colder, they get slower and slower. And so they have to find a place to hibernate where they're not going to freeze solid. I guess some of them can freeze solid, some of the frogs, but most of them get down underground or into the mud because freezing is a very terrible thing for animals, because you get ice crystals forming in your tissues, and those ice crystals cut across cell membranes, and then you get all this terrible damage to your cells. I should also tell you that hibernation is not the same as suspended animation. That's mostly a science fiction concept. Most animals, they need to come out of hibernation after one winter. They would never make it through more than a year or so in hibernation without being brought out of it. So, you know, if you're worried about things like dinosaurs being frozen in blocks of sea ice and then exposed to radiation from irresponsible nuclear testing and then thawing out near major cities and rampaging and all that kind of terrible stuff, it wouldn't happen. You just have a dead dinosaur with lots of tissue damage. Winter's a great time to look at birds' nests because they're easier to find with no leaves on the trees and the birds aren't using them. Now, some birds build a new nest every season, other ones will refurbish an old nest, so you really shouldn't mess with nests without knowing which of those two situations is the case. There are good field guides to birds' nests, and they're a lot of fun to look at. This one's about the size of a cereal bowl. It's made of mud with grass woven into it. That's a robin's nest, and I'm not going to tamper with it, but have a look at this other nest over here. This is the nest of a yellow-jacket wasp. Actually, it's the nest of quite a few yellow-jacket wasps. Bald-faced hornets make these kinds of nests too. They're just yellow jackets that aren't yellow. Now, there's no wasps in this nest right now. In the fall, all the workers died. The queens, after they'd mated, they tucked themselves into safe places for the winter. They don't make a nest to hibernate, they just hibernate on their own, and then in the spring they start new nests. So if I wanted to, I could take this nest away, I could open it up, and I could find out what's inside.
In order to properly dissect a vespulid wasp or hornet nest, all one needs is an exemplary scientific attitude and a few basic tools. The tools you will require are those found in a common dissecting kit. Tools like scissors, picks, dental tools, hooky ones are the best, and forceps. Some people call them tweezers, but they are actually forceps. And things like rulers for use in accurate measurement of wasp nest dimensions. First thing to do, place yourself in a comfortable, well-lit working environment and check your nest for remnant wasps. Hello? Centrifuge them there? Ha! None. Very good. If you don't, you might accidentally get more of a buzz out of this than you reckon for. Then, find the entrance-exit hole on the wasp nest and be prepared to begin cutting with the scissors. And a bit more trimming here just to make it easier to see what's happening. Very nice. Now this nest, you'll notice that it is layered. There is a layer of cells here, a layer of cells here, and a layer of cells under there. It's actually upside down right now. It would hang in this position originally. Surrounded by the paper layers, which insulate it from changes in temperature and humidity and all those sorts of things. Now, let's have a closer look at it. We'll need some more illumination, a headlamp, beautiful, geometrically exquisite paper cells in which the baby wasps grow up, the little wasp grubs, and I noticed that one cell still has its paper cap intact. How interesting. Perhaps there is something in there. There's only one way to find out, and that is to open the cell, which I will do right now with this scalpel. There we go. Oh my goodness! The face of a long dead wasp. A wasp which never saw the light of day. A wasp which now provides us with a glimpse
to nature's difficult and treacherous ways. Isn't that something? The wings never expanded, the legs never stretched. This wasp was not fated to survive.
Ladybugs, blowflies, and cabbage butterflies often hibernate in houses, and many come out of hibernation too early indoors.
You know, you wouldn't think that anything could be colder than the water underneath the ice in a frozen lake. But there are a lot of creatures that do stay active under there. And it's an interesting fact. I mean, think about it. It can be minus 30 up here and a balmy 1 to 4 degrees down there. So let's use this ice auger, courtesy of the fishing industry, and have a look and see if we can find any critters under the ice. There we go. Okay, now once you've got your hole drilled, you have to scoop away all the excess slush. And you never know what you might find down here. There might be fish in this lake, at least I hope there's fish. Whether you see them or not is another question. There could be water beetles, water bugs, getting air from bubbles underneath the ice. There could be little scuds, copepods. The excitement is almost too much to bear at this point. It's okay to be really thorough when you do this slush removal thing, otherwise you won't be able to see clearly into the frozen lake. Okay, more equipment is needed. Get yourself a comfy mat, nice dark blanket, and you can set up for some pleasant under the ice watching. Put your mat down. Might as well be comfortable if you're going to do this. And don't worry about doing a weird thing here, because most people will think you're ice fishing. Ha! As if that isn't a weird thing. Put the blanket over your head and settle in for a good session. Okay, what have we got here? A couple of copepods, very tiny copepods. You probably can't see those. They're only about 1 millimeter or 2 long. And you never know what... Oh, hey, look at that. All right. A diving beetle, a predaceous diving beetle, coming up the hole. That's Columbetes sculptilis. Now, isn't that just neat? You never know what you're going to see down that murky abyss there. Come on up, guy. Have a bubble of air here. Spring air, winter air, whatever. You know, it just warms my heart to think that the world of bugs continues on all winter under the ice.
Chickadees don't hibernate, but when they sleep, their body temperature drops and their heartbeat slows down, a state called torpor.
You know, winter is not necessarily a snowy thing everywhere you go, and snow is not necessarily a bad thing either. For some animals, well, it covers up the food, makes it hard to walk around, but if you were a vole or a mouse or a shrew, and you were able to tunnel underneath the snow, you would find that it's quite warm there. It's actually usually around the freezing point right down at ground surface, no matter how cold it is up here. The snow is a wonderful layer of insulation that creates underneath of it what is called the subnivean environment. Now, I've got to tell you, I never use the word subnivean normally because I'm still mad at my high school biology teacher who asked us to define the word. We all looked it up in our dictionaries. You try this at home. Get a dictionary, look up subnivean,
And I'll bet you almost anything that you won't find it. In this dictionary I have subnormal, subordinate, subplot, no subnivean. It just means under the snow, so why not say under the snow? Ooh, you know, it's not even all that warm under there. I think there's some thistles in there too. Ouch. Another word you won't find in the dictionary is the word numbleweed. Closest you can get is numbers game. That's because numbleweed is a word that my cousin Rob invented. In fact, Rob and I wrote a song about it. The Numbleweed Lullaby. Oh, go to sleep, little numbleweed, go to sleep. Whoa, little numble, go to sleep, you little weed, go to sleep. Little numble, go to sleep. Oh yeah, go to sleep. Here comes the winter, it's cold beneath the snow. There's nothing much to do now, so to sleep the numble go. Oh, little numble, you're gonna sleep for so long. 180 days, 180 nights. How you ever gonna wake up after a sleep like that?
Come to sleep, you little numbleweed. Oh, come to sleep.
Oh, go to sleep, you little numble bumblebees. Sleep, you numble gopher. Sleep, you numble trees. Numble bears and numble squirrels, numble butterflies. Won't you please go to sleep and close your numble eyes? Won't you please? Oh, please go to sleep, little numble. We go to sleep. Close your eyes, quit moving around, and be quiet. Numbleweed, won't you please go to sleep, numbleweed? Go to sleep. Yeah, go to sleep. Go to sleep. What a corky. Shut up. There is only one species of bird that hibernates, a night-flying bug-eater called the poorwill. You know, the world of insects and spiders is so big and so powerful that even the power of snow is not enough to keep them down. On a nice warm day like this near the end of the winter, you'll see, there's a fly on the tree, you'll see snow fleas on the top of the snow. They're not really fleas, they're actually springtails, little animals with a little lever on the bottom of their body that flips them into the air and they ping around on the snow. And what else might we have here? I saw a few spiders back there. Oh, here's one. Here's a little linniphiid spider. Now, I'm not sure what the common name of a linniphiid spider is, but this little guy, you see him on the snow quite often, just hanging out, looking for something to eat. Maybe he eats snow fleas. I don't know. Most of these bugs that you see on snow on warm days are lost. They're not on the snow on purpose. They're looking for someplace else that doesn't have snow. And what else? Oh, here's something cool. Ooh, isn't that a diabolical looking critter? That's the larva of a ground beetle, a carabid beetle. And that thing is, well, it will turn into a pupa, and then the pupa will hatch into the beetle. I'm not sure if it's looking for a place to pupate, to become a pupa, or whether it's just moving from the hibernating spot that it used, probably in the leaf litter, to some other spot where it can find something to eat. Good question. Woohoo! Nifty looking animal.
You know, one thing you can do while all those animals are hibernating, you can take advantage of winter time to catch up on all those nature nut things that you don't have time to do when you're spending all of your free time outdoors. For example, you can sort your photographs, your slides. I've got, well, these are all my slides from just a few months of work in the summer, and I like to, you know, everyone has their own special way of sorting their slides. I like to put them in these plastic sheets that you can put in a 3-ring binder, and I sort mine according to classification of the creatures that are being portrayed, but you know, whatever system works best for you is probably the best system that there is. It's an enjoyable thing, reminds you of all the adventures you had when the weather was better. I also like to keep track of my bird watching data, and I put it in a little data file and graph it out, and it's so nice to see that over the last couple of years, the bird watching generally, in terms of numbers of species, it starts out slow, then around the 1st of April it really takes off, and I find all sorts of new species until about maybe August, and then it flattens out, and I wind up with about 200 species in the province of Alberta every year. Hey, interesting thing to know, and you wouldn't know that unless you kept records. Look at this. It worked. It's spring. Isn't that wonderful? Oh, maybe we can sell this idea. You don't think somebody's trying to pull a physics joke on me, do you?
Some bats hibernate while others migrate. There are no bats active in winter since there are no flying bugs to eat. An old dead tree with some hollow spots inside and loose bark is a wonderful place to spend the winter for everything from some birds and mammals to small insects and spiders. Even some butterflies will use a tree like this, tuck in under the bark, and then come out on warm days, even in the middle of winter. Today I've seen a few Milbert's tortoise shells with a ragged wing edge, beautifully colored butterflies. That's a sure sign that spring can't be far behind. The great thing about nature in the winter is that it's not a complete shutdown, it's just part of nature's cycle. I'm a big fan of nature's cycle. In fact, I'm a nature nut, and I hope you are too. See you again soon. Same time each and every week, uncensored and uncut. No doubt about it, I'm a nature nut.